Hello, 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 everyone. This is Angel Aviles bringing you another episode of 30 Inspiring Women. And today I'm super, super excited to have a young woman on. Her name is Maya Murillo. She started her blog at the tender age of 16. At mayainthemoment.com, she shared her love of crafts, comedy, and ukulele love songs. Her custom love songs actually landed her on several national news outlets, including CBS News and Right This Minute. Her overall creativity led to her social media following growing to over 120,000 among teens, tweens, and millennials. Maya was nominated as an influencer by Latina magazine for a Latina 30 Under 30 award and shouted out as one of 6 Latinas you should definitely be following on Vine by Cosmopolitan magazine. Maya currently lives in Los Angeles, where she works as a producer for the wildly successful channel Pero Like by BuzzFeed. And that is actually where I met you, Maya. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your life experience with us.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be here.
So the audience doesn't know this, but you and I know that I just hung up and had to start this call all over again. And you were on a roll. And so I wanted to ask you again to repeat yourself in such an amazing way. Tell us a little bit about the culture of your home, what it was like, and how your home life influenced you to get you where you are today.
Yeah, well, again, I said this before, but I love Angel. In my phone, I actually have her saved as Sad Girl. So every time a text pops up and it says Sad Girl, I'm like, ooh, squeal! But I grew up as a third-generation Mexican-American, which means that my family has been in Arizona for 3 to 4 generations. And it wasn't until a couple months ago that I actually found out exactly where my family is from in Mexico, and that is Zacatecas in Sonora, Mexico. And a lot of people would think, like, girl, you barely found out where your family is from a couple months ago at, like, almost 25. And that has to do with my upbringing, just because being third or fourth generation, a lot of things get lost. But one thing that has always remained strong is that my parents have always instilled in my brother and I to be proud of your culture wherever you're at, because how we live our lives is a reflection of how we grew up in our surroundings. And, you know, I have just been living my authentic life as a Mexican-American girl in Arizona. And it wasn't until I got out of Arizona that I realized how other people viewed me as not Latina enough. Because I was so stuck in my little bubble, you know, growing up in elementary school and high school. And I just thought, I'm Mexican, I'm this and that. But it was because I wasn't brought up with speaking Spanish that when I got outside of Arizona, everybody was like, ooh, girl, like, you call yourself a Latina and you don't speak Spanish. And I had to go back to my parents and be like, why didn't you guys teach me Spanish? And they're like, well, we kind of know it, but, you know, our parents never really taught us that. So growing up, I had 2 spectrums to where I was super duper proud because my parents are actually Mexican-American folk artists. And so they make art, beautiful art with our Mexican culture. And then on the other end, you know, stepping out of my little bubble of Arizona and being deemed as not Latina enough because I don't know where my family was in Mexico and I didn't speak the best Spanish. But I feel like, you know, all of that has made me who I am today, and I am super fiery, passionately obsessed with being a Latina.
I love that experience, and I love that you share that experience because even though we are a generation apart, you're definitely, I'm more your mom's contemporary, and I'm excited that I'll have her on the show as well. You didn't actually mention your mom, I don't think, or your dad?
No, I didn't. My mom is the crafty chica, Kathy Cano Murillo. She gave birth to me. She is amazing, an amazing woman. She is an artist, an author, a crafter, a designer, everything. And she makes her living and her art, you know, inspired by her culture. And that has been the number one thing that's kind of kept that passion alive, is seeing her be so inspired and so happy to represent. But yeah, I'm excited for you guys to hear her talk. She's so cool. I love her.
Yes, you totally can tell that there's this love fest going on in your family. I mean, you're badass all by yourself and your mom's badass all by herself, but together you have this giant, badass, incredible experience to share. But this is definitely an interview about you, and I love that you share that perspective because I think that that's always something that I felt in a Hollywood way, the idea of not being something enough, being judged by others as a form of what it looks like to be Latina. One of the best things about Pero Like, at least for me, is like watching you guys explore the vast breadth of what a Latinx experience is.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that and about how you develop content for that project.
Yeah, well, I started with Pero Like about over a year ago, and before that I had been making content, Latino-centric content, but, they found me through my love songs, my customized love songs. They were like, would you like to be on Pero Like, as a resident? I'm like, oh my God, yes, I'm such a fan of everybody on there. And when I got there, and everybody was speaking Spanish on the team, like fluently, joking around, and I got inside my head on my first day of work. I was so excited. I moved to LA from Arizona all by myself, and I got in my head and I was like, you don't belong here. Like, you don't speak Spanish that well. They're going to know that you're a fake. Whatever it is you think that you wanted to be here, you can't do that. Like, all these things, I started attacking myself in my head. And then I was like, I got the idea to start the Pocha Concha series, which is a series where I talk about not being Latina enough. And I'm like, this is the only thing I know authentically and passionately. So I'm just gonna make videos like this and see if anything happens. And I got an overwhelming response to a community who felt the exact same way as me. And it was kind of like a light bulb. I'm like, oh, like, your life experiences can be relatable. Other people can feel the same way. And so that's what we kind of do at Better Like, is we try to get our experiences, dissect them, and then turn them into content so that they can relate to people, whether that's making them laugh or think in a different way, introduce a new idea, or, be proud, like a pride share, as we call it. And so for me, I know there were some people who were skeptical because they're like, people are already proud to be Latino. People are already proud. Like, why do you feel like you need to make this video? And I'm like, because I know there's other people who don't feel 100% included in their culture. And I'm like, I know there's people out there who feel the same way as me. And with that, I, started the Pocha Concha series, which when people hear the word pocha, they're like, oh, ay Dios mío. But like, for me, it's something that I'm taking control of and turning it into like a cute, fun kind of word. And other people now call themselves Pocha Concha. So it's really cool that I get to explore my culture, and I'm still learning every single day. And it's cool that I get to do that through art and making videos.
Just for our audience, can you describe what pocha means in a traditional sense?
Yeah. So a pocha, somebody of the Mexican descent who is either whitewashed or Americanized. So a lot of people think, because you speak a certain way that they aren't used to, that could be deemed as like American, or maybe you're Spanish, you don't have the best accent, or you say the words wrong. It's like, oh, you're a pocha, like we found you out. And it's a real horrible word that really affects some people. But for me, I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm never going to let a word or anything take power or control over me. And I think once people start to watch the series, they'll see like, okay, I see what she's doing. Because at first it was kind of like, ooh, girl, why are you calling yourself that? And I'm like, just wait for it.
Wait for it. Yes. And I love that you just said that you're not letting a word, you're not accepting the label as it was intended to offend or to shape you. you had a pocha consciousness for 5 seconds when you were at your first meeting at Pero Like, and then you changed it. And I want to talk to you about that. What were some of the obstacles that you faced when you came here in terms of mindset?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest setbacks that I had or obstacles was getting in my own way in terms of thinking that people thought of me a certain way. But also I had such a limited perspective of the Latino culture, because I was just like, oh, we have Mexicans, we have Puerto Ricans. And then when I got on the team, we have a Salvadorian, which is curly. We have 2 Dominicans. We have a Colombian. And so I got to learn about all of these different cultures and really bond with them. And that was one thing that I had to realize, that like, oh, I need to stop and learn, because I can't keep thinking that, I don't belong here or whatever. Like, I need to stop and just take in all of this new information and not get in my head, because what are you going to do? Like, are you just going to get in your head and believe that you don't belong here? Or are you going to sit and learn and just listen to people and educate yourself about what's going on around you, about the industry, about your culture, about how to make videos? That was one thing that I didn't do in the beginning, and it's so cute because Gadiel, who's a producer on our team, he's Dominican. In the beginning, he tried to help me so hard, like edit videos or just anything, and my pride was like, no, I got it. And like, we look back on that, and I'm like, man, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I need to just sit and learn and take in everything. So being in LA, that was like one of the things that I had to get over, was just like drop my pride, drop my dignity, drop everything, and just be, a vessel to learn and to take everything in.
I think that is actually a lesson that we can never stop learning, because as technology changes, I know that I could feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking my 16-year-old, can you please help me with Snapchat? I don't have a Snapchat marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And if we are not willing to sit and learn, then we are probably not going to go very far, especially in the expansion of our own creative selves.
Yeah, exactly. And a project that I'm working on now that's really allowed me to practice that is I'm making a video where I tried to learn Spanish for like 60 classes. And it has been testing my patience, girl, in terms of like my pride. Like, that's an area where I feel so much for the language, and it's one of my things on my bucket list that I want to do, is to become fluent in Spanish, because not only that it's beneficial to learn another language, but I feel more close to my culture and to, my grandmother. And in order for me to learn Spanish, I had to sit and fail and to be embarrassed. And that is something that like I struggled with so much, is just allowing myself to fail and be okay with it. And from there, I learn through those mistakes. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, and that I preach all the time, is like, you're not defined by a word or generations. It's more of like, how much education do you want to have for your culture? Like, how much do you want to learn? Because I'm not just going to sit here and be a victim and say, oh, I'm not Latina enough, or, oh, my Spanish sucks. Like, I'm going to take control of it.
The ironic thing is that you are such a demonstration of Latin culture. It's just this one little thing that you didn't have. It's like, does language sum up what makes a person a part of a culture?
Yeah, I mean, and I even talked to my tutor today, and he's like, in the beginning of our journey, you were very emotional about learning Spanish. And he's like, I could tell that you felt so deeply about learning this because, you wanted to prove something. And he's like, and at the end, you kind of went from being super emotional because that didn't really help you learn to, I'm learning a language to learn a language. I feel like sometimes it's good to have a lot of emotions and feeling about your culture, but it's also like I don't feel like the language defines if you're enough or not. I feel like it's what you choose to learn and what you define as enough and not by anyone else's standards.
I agree 100%, and not that that's like the be-all, end-all of everything, but it's true, you know, and especially because the limitation was in your own mind. You had this idea of, you know, first of all, the whole pocha idea that even though you didn't speak Spanish, you knew that word, and the negative connotation that came from that one word. And it's really interesting because at a workshop that we'll be doing at the end of the month, one of the exercises is called one word. The idea of simplifying all of your goals for the year into one word. And, you know, how difficult that can be because we like a lot of complicated words to create this story, but really can you just take one word and think about that one word and how that one word can fuel your fire in every area that you want to work on in your life. And in so many ways, that word, which had a negative connotation, it was the fuel for the fire, and it did ignite all of this creativity. And when you started to learn the language and change, well, now if you speak Spanish, you're not a pocha anymore.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, people will still say, no matter what, like I could learn Spanish, I could have this perfect accent, you know, throw out all these cool words, and people will still say I'm a pocha because of one tiny little thing. Like, it's like no matter what, it's like people in our own culture and outside will still have those limitations. And so, like, I've tried to not be fixated on, like, oh, if I just do this, then I'm not this anymore, you know? Because the hater's going to hate, man. Like, what the heck?
Yes. But the most significant change happened within you. You let it go. And you realize, like, somebody's going to believe what they want to believe. And that has nothing to do with me.
Because 99% of the time, when people say things to you like, oh, you're not enough, or make fun of you for whatever, they're projecting what somebody has said to them so they can kind of feel better about themselves. And so once that clicked in for me, I was like, okay, this isn't about me anymore. This is about you. You need to, like, you can say whatever about me, but, like, you need to fix something in your attitude. Like, calm down.
And this is a great segue into the next question that I have, which will be ultimately the last question, but you have grown up in a very different environment than I grew up in. So you had the internet all throughout your childhood and your adulthood. The broader your audience, the bigger the hater. Your channel gets millions of views. How do you process and filter through the hate that you get?
Sometimes I choose not to read the comments, and sometimes I do for education purposes, for research. Like, for example, a couple videos ago, I got this comment on one of my Bolche Concha videos, and somebody was like, okay, we get it. Like, you're proud of not being Latina enough. What else can you do? And at first I was like, what a hater. But then I was like, oh, actually, maybe I do need to start exploring different avenues of who I am in my culture, because there's a line between the haters who are just saying like, oh, you're ugly, you're fat, whatever, and then those who challenge you. So I think we at Better, like, we try to filter those in terms of like, is this a comment that you could really use as constructive criticism and better yourself and level up, or is this something that you're just like, they're just pointing out an insecurity just to be mean? So I think that's a healthy way of putting it. Sometimes I look at the comments, sometimes I don't, but when I do, I was like, okay, you know what? I could take that. I could apply that into my next video and level up. You know, as far as like the hater part, it's like people are just going to say whatever they want to say. It's like the internet, you know. But what I heard, I forgot who said this, like, you should be nervous or worried when nobody's talking about you. So I'm just like, go ahead, talk about me, say whatever you want, because you're still spending time writing out my name and thinking about me. So that's energy towards me. So thank you for that.
Well, that was my last question, and I just wanted to wrap this up by saying thank you again so much for being true to yourself, for being a young woman who followed her calling. And people can
thank
say
you
all they
so
want.
much.
Of course, I think people might look at you and say, well, of course she had the upbringing, her parents, but I want to give you props on where you from where you left your house and fueled your own dreams. Because you can have successful parents and they can be showing you all along, but the fact is that you as an individual made a choice to follow your dreams. And you had opportunities to be too afraid to be yourself, but you weren't. And I think the more people that do that, the better it is for the whole world. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. That was so nice. Oh my gosh, I got a little emotional. I'm like, yes, she's right. I did do this. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be on here and to be talking with you. Like, you're such an icon. You already know that. Like, we already tell you like so much, but like, thank you for being you and inspiring. I mean, honestly, like, you inspired my mom and I, and we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have influencers like you and that movie and everything that you guys do. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. So just to wrap up, how can people find you?
You can find me on all social media platforms at Maya in the Moment, MAYA in the Moment, and at the channel that I work at called Perolike, which is PERO like, on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. So go check us out.
Fabulous.